whatever. So, all right. And who knows what will happen going forward around here. All right, so we're Life of Christ. By stuff I'd use typically, Chronological Study of the Life of Jesus by Gene Taylor, Fourfold Gospel by J.W. McGarvey, and Padfield.com has a good selection of stuff. And I use Kaufman's commentary too. Those are my typical sources on stuff that I use, as well as the Bible. Some stuff, I mean, you can read commentary, people who've got PhDs and a lifetime in it, you can look at that and say, no, I just don't think so. And of course, you get the wrong commentary. You get somebody's point of view from a whole different perspective of, but anyways. So more preaching in Galilee. That could be the title forever, just more preaching in Galilee. I'll just keep on preaching on the orange carpet. More of it. So we're at the third circuit of Galilee. I didn't realize this was his third circuit. We already had two. 3 references, Matthew 9, 35 through 11:1, Mark chapter 6, Luke chapter 9. Mark and Luke don't, they keep it short, whopping 6 verses there. Hey, this is what Jesus did. Matthew goes overboard with this. So, of course, I picked Matthew. I should have picked one of the other ones and just moved forward. But anyways, I picked Matthew. Chuck? Yeah, that's true. Mark and Luke didn't get sent out. Matthew got the instructions. He went out. He experienced this month of mission work. He experienced it and wrote it down. I think each of us has a story that you tell a story that as it affected you, that story could be this big. You've got all the little nuances, all the traps, the good stuff, the smells, the sights, the sounds. You've got it all. And that's a good point. Matthew, this is his story. This is where he was. So starting out in Matthew 9, verses 35 through 38, Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, the laborers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." So, this is Jesus' third circuit of Galilee, like I said. Where did he stop and minister as he goes through Galilee? Where did he stop and do what he does? In the synagogues is one of his stops. So he stops in the synagogues. And it says and the villages too, right? Synagogues. Well, he goes throughout the cities and villages, but he teaches in the synagogues is really where he goes. So the synagogues, what is a synagogue? Jewish place of worship. Yeah, I think that's about as good of an answer as we've got. A lot of our worship that we do is kind of based on what the synagogues, how they worshiped, the worship style. My understanding of that is, anyways. So synagogues is where they're local place to worship. They're not. Am I right? They're not authorized. Yeah, they're not authorized. Temples only authorized, God-given, but they had synagogues for local place of worship. Yeah, no sacrifices.
Study and I guess Psalms, although
I would assume Psalms. Yeah, they would have study. They would have somebody, we see Jesus get the scroll, read it. So they had some kind of study, some kind of preaching probably, some kind of reasoning. I think the word, when Paul goes, he reasons with the people. So I put the reasoning more like a Bible class as we just talk and discuss it. They would have sang some psalms. That's basically what they would have done. So,
the rise of rabbi.
Yeah, the rise of the rabbi, the local priest, basically for the Jews, would be there. Yeah. So this is where he stops, and it makes sense because he's going to the Jews. So what did he do at these synagogues? He preached. It says he preached the gospel of the kingdom of heaven. Healed people too. So is that all he did?
Which was interesting.
What's that?
That would be interesting considering which day he normally came there. Normally they gathered in the synagogue on the first
Saturday.
week. the
Yeah.
last day of the week. Yeah. So that would be the Sabbath, and he's healing on the Sabbath.
Yeah, that's,
Twist that around.
they'd been all over him for that, wouldn't they? Yeah, because you're right. They would have worshipped on the Sabbath. The Sabbath would have been the day everybody was there. That would have been his chance to proclaim the kingdom. I'm sure, and they're upset with what he has to say. Stop giving that guy the microphone would be kind of part of the deal. But like I say, he's healing on the Sabbath, and they trail him everywhere. And we see this, that they harass the believers. You would almost think they'd get to the point where you're just not welcome in these places. You're not welcome at the synagogue.
Gather at the pool of Siloam on Saturday, or not?
Yeah. Did they gather at the pool of Siloam on Saturday? Yeah, I guess so, right?
I think they would, yeah.
Any chance you got. So there's a lot of contradiction in what the Pharisees did and what was done, and they are overzealous. That is for sure. So Jesus taught the gospel of the kingdom, and he healed, it says, every disease and every affliction. And we've looked at a lot of this stuff over time. He's healed this, that, and the other. But that's what he came to do on, like I say, the Sabbath. It doesn't really say that he didn't do it on other days, but that seems to be the meeting place if you wanted to find him. And, like I say, I don't know. Could he have been out on the steps, out in the yard? It's a good question. That's just kind of where he was. So Jesus had blank for the people who came to him in crowds. Chocolate, that's right. He said chocolate for he had compassion. He had compassion for those. And it doesn't say that just one or two showed up. It says in crowds. The crowds are coming out. The word spreads. There's no Facebook. There's no Twitter. There's no CNN. There's no internet. The word mouth to mouth, come here. Come be healed. We'll tote you to there. He has compassion for these people. Can I ask the question? Yeah. Why? Why do you have compassion for these people? Somebody had to do it?
The harassed and helpless. The leadership wasn't helping them get closer to God. Matter of fact, they were getting farther away.
Yeah, the leadership there was making it harder. They were getting farther away from God instead of closer to God. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, they were creating their own laws. They're creating their own rules, making it tougher.
Jesus was the example of God on earth, and this is the way God feels about his people. He sees even today that we are harassed and we are helpless, and this is the way he feels. His way of healing our souls every day is what he's provided for us, and this is an example, a tangible example of how God the Father.
This is a tangible example of God. He cares for, like I said, the underclass, the ones who are trampled, the ones who are in need the most. This is who he loves. This is who he has compassion for. The Pharisees, Sadducees, the leadership of the Jews, says they harassed the people. I'm sure they took roll. They stood here and they looked to see who come to listen to this guy Jesus. We got all week to harass these people. We can hold their job. We can make it harder for them to get groceries. We can just follow them around and wait for them to trip up in some form or fashion. We can just call their house. We can post bad stuff on social media. Of course they can't do that, but you see where this is going. This is the kind of thing. They're harassed, but they're helpless. Like sheep without a shepherd. They don't stand a chance against the Jewish leadership. And except it's the people, they're being healed. Don't harass the guy that can't walk there. Let him be. He's there to be healed. Let him be healed. We can have that compassion. What did Jesus ask his disciples to pray for to help the people? In verse 37, 38. Help. Yeah.
Help.
Pray for laborers. We got a lot of work to do here. Pray for laborers. Pray for somebody to do this. Pray for somebody to have this compassion, to spread this, to do the work. And who would that help be? outsiders from, no, they weren't. They were praying for themselves. He tells his disciples, pray for help. Pray for somebody to carry the message. Pray for somebody to go and bring this compassion to the people. They're praying for themselves. It's going to be them that ends up with that job. So that's what he's telling them to do, is pray for yourself. They don't know that, I don't think yet. I don't think they're, in shock when the day comes that they have to. Rolling over into Matthew 10, and he called to him his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out, to heal every disease and every affliction. The name of the 12 apostles were these: first Simon, who's called Peter, and Andrew his brother, James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, and Simon the zealot, and Judas Iscariot who betrayed him. So he calls out this group of disciples, he calls out 12, and makes them apostles. What's the difference between a disciple and an apostle?
Christ called out personally.
Yeah.
And the disciples were all the other followers.
The disciples, you're right, they're the followers, they're the listeners. The apostles get called out like this. Not only, he calls them out here 2,000 years later. We see the following of you will be apostles, and he calls them out by name. So what else makes them different?
They could perform miracles and cast out unclean
They
spirits.
perform miracles, and the miracles that they have, they cast out unclean spirits, heal diseases, and they have the authority of God. It gives them authority over unclean spirits. So this is the thing. They got a God-given authority to do this. It's not just, that's how they got it. God has given them his power to do that. So that's really what Jesus gave them to equip them. He gave them the authority over unclean spirits and the ability to heal are two things that he gave them. So as he's going to synagogues, and healing's part of it, but teaching's another part of it, but this is what he gave them. What did he not give them?
He didn't give them miraculous knowledge.
You're right. He did not give them miraculous knowledge. They don't get that yet. They get that later.
Yep.
They get that later. That's a good point. They don't get the miraculous knowledge. They've got what they've been taught. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they've gotten what they've been taught, and that's about it. Yeah, it's a simple message. I think as we get through this chapter, you see that when you get in trouble, it'll be God that speaks through you, not you that speaks through you. So yeah, it's not the opening of the scriptures that you see just before he goes to the cross. Or is that before he ascends, actually, when he gives them that power, isn't it? Yeah, so. Yeah, he doesn't give them that. What else does he not give them? Anything else? We'll find out. Moving on to verse 5. The 12 Jesus sent out, instructing them, go nowhere among the Gentiles and enter no town of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and proclaim as you go, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So, who were the 12 to go to, and who were they not to go to?
Jews only.
Jews only. And only Jews. Don't. That's it. This is who you're supposed to go to, is the Jews. Not to the Gentiles, not to the Samaritans, the Jews. Go to your brothers. Go to the people who are, the same. That's who they're supposed to go to. What's their primary message?
Kingdom of heaven is at hand. They were heralds.
Say it again? They're heralds? Yeah.
The authority they were given was to show that their message was true. But the point was the message.
The point is the message. Kingdom of heaven is at hand. The miracles they can do confirm that they have that authority for that message. The message is from God, and their abilities show that they have that authority. That's given to them too. I guess it's a sign. Or as people see that these people have authority. Today, you'd wear a name badge. I have the authority of the people I work for. The United States government has given me the authority to do this or whatever. But yeah, this is what they have to confirm their authority. Did I leave something out? Yeah, that's not it. Okay. Well, I guess only one question. It says the kingdom of heaven is at hand. What's that mean?
You're looking for it.
They've been looking for it, right? The faithful Jews have been looking for the Messiah. They've been looking for the Son of God. They've been looking for that. And that's it. It's at hand. It's close. Jesus is there, but it doesn't become the kingdom of heaven until after his sacrifice, after he raises from the dead. Then things change. So it's close, and that's how at hand it is. I think right now you're within about a year of the end of his ministry. So by and large, people that heard this message were there to see the kingdom of the church, that the kingdom changes. They were there to see that happen. You get on verse 8. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, cast out demons. You receive without paying, give without pay. Require no gold or silver or copper for your belts, no bag for your journey, or 2 tunics, or sandals, or a staff, for the laborer deserves his food. So what were they to do to share in their compassion? What were they to do to share Jesus' compassion? We talked about heal the sick, raise the dead is a weird one, isn't it? I mean, Jesus does it a couple times. Rita?
I got a question.
Sure.
Judas was given this opportunity also, correct? To heal the sick and all this,
Yep.
correct? But why did Jesus allow that? Did he, because he already knew what he was going to do to him. Correct?
Judas is a big question for a lot of people. Like you said, Jesus knew ahead of time. When you back up, he's on the list. Verse 4, and Judas Iscariot who betrayed him. Judas is there as an apostle. He sees everything. He hears everything. Even... What's that?
But did he do any of this?
I'm going to tell you, he did all this stuff. He healed. He cast out demons. Right up to the Lord's Supper, he is at the Lord's Supper. Jesus washes his feet. He's described even as the one whom he loved, same as Lazarus and same as John. Right up until he sells Jesus to the Pharisees. It's crazy, isn't it? But he loved him the whole way. And I think you see the power of Satan in that. But here's a guy who's an apostle that felt that. Sharon?
But that's how we are.
You're right. That is how we are, right?
We're like that.
We're like that?
We may, depending on what your circumstances are and what you've done, he still loved us. And he already knows what we're going to do.
Sure. Yeah, he knows.
So it's not, that's how it is.
We see what we consider something extreme, that Judas sold him for 30 pieces of silver. We also see Peter deny. I don't know who that guy is.
We sell the Lord out too.
We do sell him out, don't we? There's a cheap gospel sometimes people have. I check these boxes. Not these.
I think he's just letting us see that even though we do these things, he still loves us.
He still loves us. He still loves us.
Regardless, but he will also say, he's not going to lie, he can't lie, that if you do these things, what happened to him is what happened to us in terms of getting our just reward.
Yeah, the stuff that happened to him happens to us.
Yeah.
Rita?
Could Judas have come back and asked for forgiveness if he really meant it? Do you think?
Could he have repented of that?
Like Peter? Or do you think as hard as our heart?
That's a good question, Susan?
There's a lot of discussion after Judas did what he did. At the time he did it, he did not think what was going to happen. He knew that Jesus had the power to let that go away or to walk through the crowd and whatever. But remember, after it happened, he tried to return the money and he killed himself.
Yeah.
So we don't know what his his spiritual situation was. He didn't live until Christ arose from the dead. He was under the old law and everything. But we don't know what went on after. But somebody had to do it. Jesus knew it. God knew it.
It had to happen.
And I think that, like I said, we don't know. There's a lot of indications that he certainly felt guilt when he realized what he thought he was just turning him over to the Jews. We thought that, and it often happens in us. We compromise. We think, oh, well, it's like you were saying. And all of a sudden we're in this horrendous situation and we still want God to love us. We don't know what his relationship is, but there is indications that he certainly felt grief for what he had done.
Definitely felt grief, and it's a lot of this stuff in the Bible. We've come across some of these. What if this had changed? Would things be different? And the truth is, it's all part of the plan. It can't change, But it's what brought him to the cross. We benefit from the fact that he sold them out. But could he have? And Susan's got the point.
It was Jesus' choice.
It was Jesus' choice all the way.
It wasn't, even though it was.
He wasn't killed.
He did make the choice, am I correct?
He gave his life.
Turn him in.
Right. Jesus gave his life. Yeah, you're right. I think Susan said Judas may have even thought, well, we've seen him walk through a crowd before. You can get away from cops the same way. If you can walk through a door, you can walk through a bunch of cops or whatever, the crowd that comes to get him. That's the words that were on the cross. Why didn't he save himself? And that's, to a lot of people that was the mystery. Why doesn't he save himself? And on this side of it, we know. And I think Judas being an apostle, it wasn't an outsider. It was somebody close to him. And it makes it just that more powerful that he was that close and that hold that Satan has on each one of us. The ability, what's offered is this much, but we've got stuff that can take it away just that easy. So Judas is a good study. And it's almost a creepy study because, one thing, you can't really... You're going to have to guess on a lot of it. You're going to have to fill in your own gray area. But the hows, the whys, why him? What if it had been John? What if it had been Peter or Andrew? Don't know. But it's an if, but it's a big question. So why would this healing be helpful in counteracting the poison of the Pharisees? Like how I use that word poison. That's what it is. Jesus offers healing. The Pharisees and the Sadducees, they didn't. They were pulling people away from God, and they were building more walls to keep away. And this is just the contrary to that. God cares. It's compassion. Why do you think they were commanded to not take money for the miracles they performed? If the point was to make money, they would just build a big vault right there and just drop it in. We'll heal as long as you're bringing in gold and silver. We'll just stay here all day long. That ain't the point. Because who wouldn't? Who wouldn't pay big bucks to cure cancer, to cure anything? Just to not feel tired in the morning. Well, what would you pay for that? That's not the point. And I like his words here in the Bible is, you receive this without paying, give without pay. You've got this ability to heal, and it didn't cost you anything. You didn't have to go through 8 years of college, which won't do what these guys could do. Anyways, you didn't take time and training or money to get this gift. Give it away the same way you got it. Heal these people because they need it. Chuck?
He says, you got to learn not on depending on yourself. You got to learn to depend on God.
You got to do it depending on God. Don't depend on your own ability. Yeah, because that's it. I heal Nora now. I got Christy. I got Carla. I can heal everybody, right? And it's more money for me that I can just you can't depend on yourself. It's God's power, and it's for His glory. If you make the money, people will even see it that you're the healer rather than God being the healer. So at any given point, whether it's $1, they see it, they'll lose His point. Why do you think He sent them out without food, money, extra clothes? Chuck said, depend on God. Don't depend on yourself. How about the hospitality of others? That's part of the Jewish culture too. It's part of the Eastern culture. When I was in grad school, before I started, they made us take 2 weeks of teacher training for those of us who were going to teach college classes. We had FIT, where I went down to Melbourne, is like the most international college in America. People there from, I think, 100 countries. So we had to learn a little bit about culture. We had to learn how to treat people because, here I am, I'm 22, and I'm going to, take on the world. But one of the things about the people from the Middle East that a lot of us didn't know was, if you say you like something, they'll give it to you. That's their culture, Like that tie, like that shirt, tell you what, I'll go home and wash that and I'll bring it back to you next time we see you. So we had friends that we'd harass. I love that BMW. That is one sweet BMW. Don't get me started. So, they would be like, don't tempt me. So it's different. But this is the same kind of thing. They're hospitable enough to give you the shirt that, if I like this shirt and you like my shirt and I give it to you, that's pretty hospitable. But you take this to the next point, make the people live, as you're reaching out to them with the message, let them use their hearts. Let them be hospitable. Reinstall that in them. The poison of the Pharisees and Sadducees, they've been afraid to. If I give that guy, they're going to scream. No, you're going to have to. These people, the 12 apostles, are going to have to eat. They're going to have to, their shoes are going to wear out, and they're going to need, how many days in Israel can you wear the same clothes? How many days would you do it in Florida? Not too long. Susan's like, no, I'm not going to. Just not. So this is what they are. It instills people to be God's people. Whatever town or village you enter, find out who's worthy in it and stay there till you depart. As you enter the house, greet it. And if the house is worthy, let your peace come upon it. But if it's not worthy, let your peace return to you. So why do you think they were commanded? Basically, you're going to go to a single household. You go to the village, you're going to find a household that's worthy to keep you. A household of good reputation, a household that's going to receive the message, and you're going to stay there. You're not going to go, I'm not going to stay with Chuck and Susan 2 nights and then go to the Tag Toes for a couple nights and move over here. Why did he say, stay there?
Is worthy. And it says, find out who is worthy. Not find out everybody who's worthy, but find out who is worthy. In other words, to me, it would be the person who is looking to seek after God the most.
Yeah.
And if you stay there the entire time, you can teach that person, as well as those people that you touch in the village, more effectively than if you're just jumping around.
You stay there, that worthy person, like you said, and they're going to learn more than anybody. They're going to see and learn, as well as you're teaching others, that'll be the next focal point to spread it.
I've got a laborer. He sent out 12. Those 12 go in every village and find out the worthy person. That worthy person is now someone who's going to spread the word.
Right. Yeah, it grows this way. It grows this way, and it gives them more time. Brent?
And they have the respect of the town if they're staying with a worthy person, as opposed to if they go somewhere where it's like they always accuse Jesus of eating with sinners and stuff like that. They lose that.
But yeah.
And then they're part of the controversy. And
you have one good household, you build that reputation for them as well as yourself. You go to the next household, and it's like, people are like, oh, no, not them. Not those people. And they're tax collectors. They're sinners. You're right. And even to sort that out, the time it takes. Okay, I stayed here one night. Let me go door to door. Let me find the next worthy person. It takes time. The culture, they talk about the social things. Well, if you're going to go to these houses, come to my house for lunch today, and then go over here for tea, and come over here for the. All you're going to do is it's going to be social thing to social thing. You'll never get down to the work. You could be kept busy just doing this. Allows more time to do it. You're still going to do some of that stuff, I'm sure, but it allows more time for showing the compassion, the healing, the teaching. So what's the standard Jewish greeting? Shalom means what?
Peace be to you.
Peace. Means peace. Peace to you, peace. That's the standard Jewish greeting is shalom. So he says, in whatever town or village you enter, find out who's worthy in it. It says, as in verse 12, as you enter the house, greet it. He doesn't mean greet the house, greet the household. It's got to be what it is. It's not Pee Wee Herman or something, it's just not. But so the standard greeting is peace. If the household is ready to embrace the message of salvation, the Lord will bless them with peace. If you go to this house, that's kind of the worthy thing. As you establish, they're willing to listen to the message and receive that and God's love. Well, peace will be on those who receive it. If they're not, they don't get the authority to curse them. They don't get the authority to. It just comes back. If the apostles have offered peace to these people and they're not worthy and they don't take it, the apostle should have peace, especially as he goes to the next place. He's the one that gets that peace. Verse 14, and if anyone will not receive you or listen to your words, shake off the dust from your feet, and when you leave that house or town, truly I say to you, it will be more bearable in the day of judgment for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah than for that town. So Jewish rabbis taught that the dust of the heathen cities defiled the faithful. So basically, if you're in a city with all heathens, you didn't even want to carry their dust with you, because dust is what? You know what dust is? You're going to hate this. This is worse than finding out what's in hot dogs. What is dust? Do we know? It's a little bit of everything. And a lot of it's human skin, human hair. So dust is the people around you. Dust is the people that were around you 10 years ago. Dust is the people that were around 100 years ago. You might have some Jesus dust around somewhere, but you might not. But it's everything and everywhere. Shake that stuff off when it's bad. Shaking the dust off from houses that didn't listen to the message indicated they were no better than the heathens. So if you go to share the message and they won't listen, they don't care, they're part of the heathens too, just move along. Where do we see the tradition of shaking off the dust? Farther in the New Testament. Once the church is established, this is still a tradition too. We don't do it so much. Although there are days when I felt I needed to. Where do you see somebody shaking the dust off of them in the New Testament? Paul's first journey is really the best place. He goes to one town, he talks in the synagogues, people believe, and they're believing, and the Pharisees move in, the Judaizers, and they kick him out. And they take him to the edge of town, basically. They stone him, and they leave him for dead. And he stands up, like the fool he is, and he knocks the dust off him, and he goes to the next town. They're heathens. But, on that first journey, he actually comes back to these churches, strengthens them, and appoints elders is another thing he does. But you see this same thing. So, Chuck? Athens, yeah. Yeah, you're right. He talks to them and he reasons with them, but he sees they're not really going to do it, is it? There's some people somewhere. Don't rule out that it's never everybody, but spend your time where it's best well spent is another part of that. Why were the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah less reprehensible than the sins of the villages that rejected the apostles? Their sins were in the dark. They didn't have the Word of God. They didn't, there were sins, and like everybody can see, they're sin. But And these people, they got the Word of God. It's by the authority. It's dark versus light. It's just, man, you should have, this is, you've heard this before. It isn't anything even new. So they had the Old Testament that led up to this. They're hearing this. It's more. Now, you're right. Verse 16, behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. So it's a dangerous mission. He tells them that. He's up front with them. This is not simple. I'm not just dropping you off for a good time. This could be tough work. So what wolves? What were the wolves that he's sending them out as sheep into the midst of the wolves? Who would be? Where would be the wolves? What are the wolves? It could be the temple, in all honesty, because some people, they wanted to keep that. They wanted to keep the old school ways, so that would be part of it, holding on to that. Chuck? It's definitely the leaders that wanted to quiet the message, the one that keep them out. Keep power, sorry.
It's the most important. Because with power came the ability to take money, do whatever you wanted to.
Yeah, the power is, you get money, power is everything. And you're right, they're the wolves in this case. And that's all, it ties back to the temple, because that gave them money, gave them power. What could one wolf do in a herd of sheep? What could happen to a few sheep in the midst of wolves? So you got a herd of sheep, and you got one wolf. How many sheep do you get back? Depends on how hungry the wolf is, right? So, but if you got a handful of sheep, but a bunch of wolves, how many sheep do you get back? If you're lucky, you get one or two. But yeah, not at all. And that's really what's happened. As they strengthen, you get people believers, one or two or a handful. The wolves are more. You don't find the survivors. Wise as serpents. Serpents considered a symbol of wisdom to the ancients. We see it in Genesis 3:1. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast in the field the Lord had made. We saw that in the Garden of Eden. Acts 16 is another one, 16, 17. As we're going to the place of prayer, we met a slave girl who had a spirit of divination and brought her owners much gain by fortune telling. She followed Paul and us, crying out, these men are servants of the Most High God who proclaims the way of salvation. That spirit of divination, in Greek translates to python. So it's possible she had a big snake with her as she, I never realized that before, but that's what one of the commentaries said. So anyways, it's still a symbol of the wisdom that she had. And doves are harmlessness and innocence. You see that with the ark landing, as God sends out a dove to find ground. A new, clean earth. And you also see that the Spirit sends on Jesus after his baptism as a dove. So, Matthew 10, verse 17, beware of men, for they will deliver you over to the courts, flog you in their synagogues, and you will be dragged before governors and kings for my sake, to bear witness before them and the Gentiles. You see this with Jesus, and also we know that historically the apostles had the same kind of stuff happen to them. When they deliver you over, don't be anxious how you are to speak or what you are to say, for what you are to say will be given to you in that hour. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. So this is, although they didn't have that divine inspiration, it's going to come when it's needed, is really, I guess, kind of what it's there for. For us, study, learning God's Word is the best we can do. Brother will deliver brother over to death, father his child, and children will rise against parents, have them to death. You will be hated for all my name's sake, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. When they persecute you in town, flee to the next. For truly I say to you, you will not have gone through the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. It's going to happen, is really what it says. There are going to be bitter hearts. There will be people that do terrible things, and even if you move to a new town, you're going to go to another town, and it's just going to keep going. Basically, it goes on, 24. Jesus had this happen to him. His apostles will have the same thing. Don't be feared by what they can do to you. It's God who has the ultimate thing. Your life and death here is nothing compared to making heaven or not making heaven. I won't even get into the sword. We'll just skip that part. Whoever receives you receives me, and whoever receives me receives him who sent me. Basically, it gets to, if you receive the apostles, you receive Christ. If you receive Christ, you receive God. The men of God are supposed to be treated as men of God, not to be harassed, not to be choked out, and the people that deny them deny God. Departure of the 12 takes about 5 weeks before the Passover. This is really kind of time frame. They're sent out for about a month, is about what they are. And this with no food, no money, no second set of clothes. And Matthew 11:1 kind of finishes up. When Jesus had finished instructing his 12 disciples, he went on from there to teach and preach in their cities. He sends the 12 out, like I said, for about a month. They spread the word and they heal. Chuck pointed it out. You go here, well, those people, they share it and they share it. It just grows. And this is what happens. And they meet back up with Jesus in Jerusalem for what would be the third Passover of his ministry. So that's where Jesus has his own preaching and teaching and healing at the same time. So really there's 13 of them that go out like that. So anywho, we'll finish it up with that. Susan?
Missionaries used. I know when we were in Japan, the first church was started by my mom and dad, and they started out in their home.
Yeah.
And inviting people into their home, and it grew from there. And same thing in Korea. When he was in Korea, it's a lot of times it starts in homes.
Starts in the homes.
And then when it gets bigger, it spreads out.
Yeah, it has to. Like you say, just economically, you're not just going to walk into town and buy a facility like this. Even here, I'm sure before. Well, this one was a plant from Central, but it started in small areas. But some of it does. It starts in the homes. It starts in smaller clusters and grows. Some places say they don't feel the neighborhood, the community doesn't treat them right until they have their own facility. But except this is a good pattern. This is the pattern that we'll start with. I think other versions talk about sending them out in twos. The apostles go out in twos. I know that's the thing. Harding does that with their mission training. I forget what that thing's called. Harding actually has, they've got like little villages and stuff set up in the woods. If you go, you stay in that for a week. Learn what it's like to not bathe for a week. Learn what it's like to kill a chicken and eat that. You don't have to, but they do. Some of it, that's, where they're going to go to a foreign place. When their mission training's that way, and they send them in twos. Taylor's friend, Bonnie, they call each other their two. And that's just that's the friendship they have. It's their twos. So, yeah, the pattern's there. Very rosy. His is basically, his work is continued in Mali, his church, as his house. Venezuela was basically his house to start. So, anyways, but they always potholes and wolves. So, thanks for joining us this morning, and stick around for worship. Thank you. Sing the